cells. Majority of the respiratory zone are made up of these types of cells. Highlight, star, underline. You'll see that again. Okay, and then as we already mentioned, those pulmonary capillaries are going to be there for gas exchange to occur. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing about gas exchange, but it's necessary. All right, so we call this the air-blood barrier. So you have a membrane, obviously, that sits between the air coming in from the lungs and then the blood of the capillary beds, right? That's what this is. This is a blown-up image showing you what's happening here. So all of this is the inside of one of those bubbles, one of those alveoli. And what's happening is you have this gas exchange between the cells of the air that's coming in, and then it's going to be distributed out to the blood. This image for us really isn't priority. It's just kind of an inside look of what the alveoli look like. This is what changed. Well, I mean, they get smaller and bigger. Yeah. We mentioned yesterday, we'll talk about it again today, that all this gas exchange that we kept talking about is based upon diffusion. What is diffusion? The movement of something from an area of high concentration to low. If I pack this room with some of your closest friends, so you were standing elbow to elbow and I cranked up the heat, what would happen, first of all? It might get stinky in here, sweaty, irritated. What if I open the door?
People would leave.
People would try to leave. I mean, you would think people would try to leave. Why? To get out. So they're moving from an area of highly concentrated people, smelly, sweaty kids, to an area maybe where there aren't as many. That's an example of diffusion. Okay? So that's what these gases are doing. If you have too much oxygen in the blood, in the lung, and not enough in the blood, it's going to move into the blood. That is what diffusion is. That's how this works. Any questions? Don't be shy. Okay. Stages of respiration. The first one, pulmonary ventilation. This is just when air moves in and out of the lungs. Air moves in, air moves out. External respiration is when the gas comes into the blood from the alveoli. So the movement of gas is kind of from the external environment inside of the blood, and vice versa. Two more? Two more events of respiration? Okay. It goes crazy. Okay. Respiratory gas transport. So you breathe in, oxygen passes into your blood capillaries in the lungs, and now it needs to be taken somewhere. Where are some places that oxygen is going to be taken? Muscles. Your brain. Where else? Organs, really any type of cell. Okay. This movement of the gases through your blood is what we call respiratory gas transport. It is being transported or taken where it needs to go. The gas gets to its location where it's needed. We'll just say skeletal muscle for this instance. Oxygen will leave the blood and move into the skeletal muscle. Pick up CO2, put it back into the blood. That is internal respiration. I keep external and internal kind of separate. The way I look at it is as you breathe air in from the external environment, the first way it gets into the body is from the lung into the blood. For me, it makes sense. That's more external versus blood into a cell. So that is all the way inside. Does that make sense? right? Yeah, so that's people's tissues turn black. Very good. Yes. Okay, pulmonary ventilation, just the simple act of air entering and leaving your lungs. Everybody take a deep, deep breath in. Am I the only one that just breathed in? Now exhale. That's pulmonary ventilation. How does that work? Ooh, good question. Your diaphragm. Sarah, you're right. This is a completely mechanical process. It all depends on volume inside of your chest cavity, inside of your thoracic cavity. I have an awesome model here. I'll show you in a second. I'm really excited about it. I made it this morning. Okay? Online. Mr. Keys made a model, but I like this one better. It's more colorful. All right, volume changes. Do you guys remember Boyle's law from chemistry? Might be a little hazy. It's all right. If I taught you, you should definitely remember it, right? Yeah. Okay. What does Boyle's law state? As volume increases, what happens to pressure? It decreases. Yeah, that. So they're inverse, right? What happens if volume decreases? Pressure increases. Okay, very good. Volume changes in your chest cavity change pressure. Okay? Breathing is all about trying to balance out that pressure. Do you remember from chemistry? Think back. It was about a year ago. How do we measure pressure in the air? Barometric pressure. How do you measure it? Barometer. What is the average pressure in the atmosphere? Do you remember the number? 760. Does that ring a bell? 760 millimeters of mercury, mmHg. Okay, that's what we're going to say average pressure is in this room. While you're sitting here not breathing in, okay, before you take a breath in or before you exhale, the pressure in your chest and in the air is the same. In order to inhale, your diaphragm, this muscle, has to contract. When the muscles contract, they shorten. Do you remember that? So as it contracts, what happens to volume inside of your chest cavity? Breathe in real deep. What happens to volume? It increases. So what happens to pressure? Okay, if you have higher pressure outside and lower pressure inside, what does the air do? It moves in to try to balance it out. I'll say that again, okay? Take a deep breath in. Do you feel your chest expanding? Your diaphragm is pulling down. You can actually hear it if you're up here. It's pulling down. As volume increases, pressure drops. Boyle's law. Well, now you have a lower pressure in your chest than you do in the air. The air is going to move in to try to balance that out. That's how you pull oxygen or air into your chest. Does that make sense? I'll try to walk around so you can see this. When I pull on the diaphragm, the little pink lung in here, yes, you have two normally. Couldn't break that up. The lungs should inflate. You'll see it get bigger. It's hard to see. You can lay up. It's okay. I like this stuff.
How'd you do that?
If you guys are really interested, you can come by after school. We'll make one together. Okay? Neat? All right. Now, we talked about inspiration. If you've been holding your breath the whole time, you can release. Okay? Take another deep breath in, and then we're going to blow it all back out. What happens when you exhale to your chest volume?
Decreases.
It decreases. So your diaphragm, that muscle, relaxes. Okay, so it expands and it moves back up. That pushes on the lungs. So volume is dropping. What's happening to pressure? It's increasing. So you have higher pressure in here, lower outside. Where's the air go? Out. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So I'll pass this around if you want to kind of want to check it out while I'm talking. If you don't want to, just pass it on to the next person. It's not a big deal. Okay. 2 phases of pulmonary ventilation. Inspiration, air flowing in or moving into the lungs. Expiration, air exiting or leaving. In, exit. guys feel intelligent right now? Good. You should.
No.
No?
I know, I like that thing. It's fun.
Alright. Inspiration. So we said that smooth muscle, that diaphragm that sits right below your lungs, it is basically the main mover of air. But you also have intercostal muscles. And you should hopefully remember these from chapter 6. Where are your intercostals? Between your ribs. Awesome. So, there are muscles between your ribs, and there are muscles that lay at the base of your rib cage. When these contract, they shorten. Your thoracic cavity will get larger because the diaphragm pulls away from the lungs. Air from the outside is pulled in because the intrapulmonary, so the inside of the lungs volume, is getting bigger. It's all about pressure and volume. Boyle's law. So, yes, I can. So what we're going to look at here in a second is kind of a diagram of what's happening when you breathe in and when you breathe out as far as size of the cavity. And then I have a brief little video, throw some terms in there. Instead of just using general terms that we've been using, we'll throw in some terms that you guys are going to need to know. Are we good, Damien? Yeah? Alright. Inspiration. I feel like I'm repeating myself a billion times, so we'll kind of go through this kind of quick. What happens to the diaphragm? It contracts and shortens and pulls away. What happens to volume? Increases. What happens to pressure? What happens to air? Moves in. Pressure drops inside, so it's higher out here. So in order to balance, it moves in. When you're doing that, you can feel your chest getting bigger, your diaphragm going away. Okay? Exhalation. Passive process. What does passive mean? No energy required. It is the relaxation of a muscle, so that should make sense. It doesn't really require any energy to relax. So as that diaphragm relaxes, as your intercostals relax, volume will drop, pressure will increase. Now you have higher pressure inside, lower outside. Where's the air go? Out. Now, obviously you can force an expiration. You can try to force out more air than you really breathed in, and that's fine. That's all because of those intercostals and the diaphragm that allow you to do that. And later on, hopefully today, we'll talk about what it's called when you can push out more air than really you breathed in. Yes? Did you guys hear that? She said kind of like when you're in a pool and you want to sink to the bottom, so you try to blow out as much oxygen or air that you have in your lungs to try to drop. You can think of it that way. All right, and then this is exhalation. You're expiring or letting that air leave. And these arrows are showing you that the cavity is getting smaller, so pressure increases. And we'll watch this little clip. So he's going to throw in some terms. He'll say barometric pressure. That is atmospheric pressure. And he will say intrapulmonary pressure. Intra means pulmonary means lung. So he's talking about the pressure inside of the lungs. Okay?
Inspiration begins with contraction of inspiratory muscles to increase thoracic volume.
The diaphragm.
This results in expansion of the lungs and an increase in alveolar volume. Beginning